Here's how to introduce yourself, if you weren't aware. Let me pull this up. So we're just going to do name, pronouns if you feel comfortable, your connection to Tigard, why you volunteered for this ad hoc committee, knowing that everybody came from a different spot, and then just Thanksgiving and the holiday season coming up, what your favorite holiday tradition is. And I'll go down the line, but I'll start us off. I am Kim Ezel. My pronouns are she, her. I work for the city of Tigard in the city manager's office as the program manager for strategic initiatives. Means I get to pick up a lot of projects that have facilitation, which is in my background, or that affect a lot of different departments and need some coordination. I think I was asked if I wanted to be on the ad hoc committee, but I was very enthusiastic because I came from facilitating PSAB. And my favorite holiday tradition is across every holiday, my family always plays board games after dinner. And we are an incredibly competitive bunch. And we have a lot of fun and there's a lot of screaming. And I completely forgot to add at the beginning of this, but this meeting is being recorded for posterity and will be put on the city's YouTube channel at the end of our meetings, just so you're all aware. Thank you, Alex, for hitting that record button that I never remember to hit. All right, so Valerie, I see you at the top of my screen, so why don't you go next?
Sure. So my name is Valerie Sasaki. My pronouns are she, her. I've lived in Tigard for 20 years now, and which is why my house is falling apart. But it's hit its useful life, I guess. So I became involved in these issues by serving on the PSAB. You know, in the wake of the George Floyd incident, I was really concerned about policing and representation in my community, because I really do think that all change and all the things that we believe most strongly about, play out most, with the most resonance in our local communities. And so I'm very excited to be asked to serve on this group and with all of y'all. And as far as favorite holiday tradition, so the period of time between Thanksgiving and the end of the year is absolutely miserable. It's our busiest time at work. Everybody's trying to make gifts. Everybody's trying to close business deals, and so my favorite holiday tradition is actually culturally, I'm Japanese American. And so we always have a big New Year's party on New Year's Day. And so it marks the end of my busy season. There's a lot of really great food and a lot of great memories that are associated with that. So, but yeah, between now and the end of the year is pretty miserable.
Thank you for making the time for us during your busy season.
This is important.
Kelly, how about you?
Does the sound still terrible?
Only when we talk.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Okay, my name is Kelly Piment, pronouns she, her. My connection to Tigard is I live in Tigard, and I am on the budget committee there, and I love Tigard, and I tell everybody about Tigard and how great it is to live there. And so I guess I'm like a really big advocate for Tigard. So why I volunteered. This is my first ad hoc committee. I was sort of asked if I would be interested because I was a no vote on this position. And so I think that's how I ended up on the ad hoc committee, and I'm excited to be here. Favorite holiday tradition, I think, I don't know, like we make everything from, like, I love to cook. And so just cooking everything from scratch is probably my favorite thing that we do. And we just hanging out with my husband and my kids, and all of our weird family members show up. So that's me.
Thank you, Kelly. Councillor Singh.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. It's nice to be here. My name is Jay Raj Singh, Tigard City Councilor. I use he and they pronouns. My connection to Tigard, I just got elected this past year to Tigard City Council. So it's my first year, first term. And I really wanted to volunteer for this ad hoc committee to really follow through with, communities' needs and, PSAB's recommendation, and also just passionate about, engaging with community members and figuring out ways to help community navigate our local government. And favorite holiday tradition, I would say, is probably just spending time with family. Luckily, I have good relationships with family. I have my older brother and sister-in-law and niece and Tiger just down the street. So it's really nice to be able to celebrate Thanksgiving and holidays. And my mom usually comes from Atlanta to visit, and we eat good food. She cooks, I'm South Asian, Indian, and she cooks really good Indian food for us. So just look forward to that every year.
Thank you. Steve.
Thanks, Kim. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Steve Reimer. I'm currently the city manager. I've been city manager coming up on 3 years. Also, at the same time, lived here now for just about 3 years in Tigard as well. He, him. Why I volunteered is as a city manager and being part of this process, starting with the current budget. I want to gain a broader understanding from all of you, be able to listen to all of you, and be able to have conversations with all of you as we move forward with the needs for the community, as well as maybe some solutions for it. From a favorite holiday tradition, so I grew up in a large family, at least the way I define large, 7 kids, my mom, my dad, so 9 of us. So it took me a lot, and my dad was a teacher, my mom helped raise us, so we'd have toys everywhere for Christmas. So it took me a long time to really believe that there's a Santa Claus, because I thought there was no way that my mom and dad can afford all the toys that they buy every year for us. So great parents on that end. Currently, 6 years ago, we started a brand new tradition because of some life experiences that we had, and we now make homemade spaghetti, meatballs, and sauce on Thanksgiving with our granddaughter. So that's my.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Jimmy.
Yes, Jimmy Brown, he and him. Connection to Tigard probably goes all the way back to when I was 12, 13. My best friend's grandma lived out off of Oak Street, and we used to come out and run around when Tigard was not as populated. It still felt like a farming community, and for a kid who grew up in the city, this was pretty cool. But I've now lived here for 30 years. Have raised 4 kids. We have 5 grandkids who live in the area and 3 who live out of state. Why I volunteered for this ad hoc committee. I was part of PSAB. We had some very robust discussions about the community navigator position. We felt as a committee that this was something that the city needed to invest in, and we were able to, through those discussions, get the committee to agree to send this particular resolution forward to City Council. So part of it is I want to continue that momentum and have us continue to see that the community navigator position is a spot, a space, a place, a process that the city can invest in and do so in a robust manner. My favorite holiday tradition, after having raised 4 kids, 8 grandkids, waking up on Christmas Day and knowing that it's 11 o'clock in the morning. It's a wonderful feeling. And then getting ready to go to their houses. So that's my favorite holiday tradition, getting in the car and going over and FaceTiming those who live out of state.
Thanks, Jimmy. Alex.
All right. Hi, everybody. I know most of you. I don't think I've met you yet, Kelly. My name is Alex Richardson. My pronouns are she and her. I am a management analyst in the city manager's office. So I support various initiatives. I oversee another of our councils, Tigard Youth Advisory Council, and just policies that relate to city management and really all of our departments. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm just happy to support this. And I also left out that I helped run PSAB as well. So Kim was a facilitator and I was kind of the administrative teammate liaison. So Public Safety Advisory Board is my connection. And then I love winter solstice. I do celebrate Christmas, but I also celebrate winter solstice. So I like to do activities relating to light, like making luminarias or candles, that kind of thing. And then my sister makes amazing mac and cheese on Christmas. So I literally look forward to it all year. Super excited to have it again. So that's mine.
So are you a creamy mac and cheese or like a baked mac and cheese? There's like the saucy versus the solid.
Baked.
Baked, all right.
Yeah, she puts Velveeta in it, and I know it's controversial, but I like it that way.
There are strong feelings about mac and cheese in this world. Awesome. So this meeting is really going to focus on kind of setting a base, getting to know each other through this introduction, kind of what our process is going to be for the next 3 meetings, introduce a couple of teammates and what they work doing, and then Alex is going to talk about a couple other initiatives that she works with. So continuing on that, just a refresher on who are these members. So the way this was presented and put together with the budget committee and council is we have our city council representative, Councilor Singh, our budget committee representative, Kelly Piment, 2 PSAB members, Valerie, and then Jimmy, and then our Tigard teammate, who's actually a non-voting member of this group, who will be Steve Reimer. And so Steve, you want to talk a little bit about that non-voting and what you're looking to kind of be as that role as the Tigard teammate?
Yeah, thanks, Kim, and to everyone on the committee, just clarity on this part, because it didn't really come through the night of or the report that we shared. So, and I know many of you were there listening to what the budget committee and some of the words that we shared as well. So for my role, once again, as the city manager, and I started this, alluded to it in my intro about myself, is really envision myself in a listening mode here, really listening to understand, just listening to learn, as I mentioned, starting with the gaps that all of you believe are in our community, and then ultimately what are the different solutions that we have to address those gaps. If it means we move forward a recommendation that has resource implications, I personally want to be able to articulate it, to the budget committee. I want to be able to embrace it. I want to be able to champion it, to be honest. And so having this background and just being part of the conversations, I think is going to be helpful, because as we get to the process, you'll see how that will play out here in the very near future. So once again, listen, try to provide some input and insight as appropriate, and then ultimately embrace what all of you come up with. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any questions about what it means to be the non-voting as well.
No, I do want to say I appreciate your joining us, because I think that whatever this role ends up looking like, it's going to intimately involve your office. And so that's why I think it's really very useful to have you and the other folks from the city here.
Good. That's great. I appreciate that. And I really do look forward to hearing all your different perspectives and thoughts. That's going to be great.
Great. Any other questions about kind of the membership of the board? And then I don't know if we made it very clear, but Alex and I are co-facilitating. So great. So Alex, why don't you take it away?
All right. And I'm also taking notes, so I'll be doing that kind of while we're talking. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about member expectations. You all, of course, have experience sitting on different boards of different types. And so this is, this is familiar, but it's always good to start off a new group kind of talking about expectations. So of course, we'd like to all keep an open mind. There's differing viewpoints in this room, as we've already heard a bit, and new ideas will be sparked, new potentially people will gain information that makes them think about things in a different way. And that's really the goal, is to just have an open mind and to, over a series of meetings, come to some consensus. But we expect there to be, moving on to the next bullet, potentially respectful conflict, and that is okay and that is welcomed.
Yeah.
That could happen. And I think that we all are definitely, on a good path to being able to do that in a constructive way. And I have no doubts about that, but always good to just say it out loud. Also, some of us are coming in with a lot of background in terms of the Public Safety Advisory Board, and some are not. So I guess I just wanted to mention that because we'll touch probably a little bit on the genesis, but the idea is to really kind of explore things in an open way with that as the background, but potentially think creatively about things. And so yeah, I think that we'll be able to kind of look at things from all different kinds of perspectives. And then another expectation is just to ask clarifying questions. So and that's in terms of, to the facilitators, to teammates, to Steve, of course, and then of each other, to make sure that we really understand what we're saying and that we feel like we have all the information that we need before we move on from one discussion point to the next. I think that's all I have to say about that, but I did want to ask if anyone has any expectations that they'd like to add, anything that they'd like kind of for the record to add to this, make sure we're including everybody's thoughts on expectations for members.
So I did hear recently that when you're doing a meeting like this, you need to leave a 7-second pause because that's how long it takes somebody to unmute. So if it sometimes looks like I'm just staring at you, try counting to 7 in your head because that's what I'm doing, and you'll get it.
I never actually heard that trick. I like that, counting to 7. Okay.
Yeah. It feels like forever though. All right, next slide.
All right. All right, so yeah, you can see our commitments here. I'm going to be doing a lot of the note taking, and of course you saw me communicating with you via email and setting out the agendas and such, but Kim will lead a lot of the discussion, and I'll pop in sometimes. And here's kind of our begin and end promptly. We're doing great so far. And I know that we all have things, obviously dinner, city council, things going on directly after this. So we commit to ending promptly, setting out the agendas ahead of time, as well as any supportive or supplemental materials so that you all have an opportunity to review that before our meeting. As we talked about with the member expectations, creating an environment where everybody feels like they can be heard. And if there are any, I guess I would just encourage us, if there are any feelings of that not happening or somebody feeling not heard, please let us know. We really want to create an environment where people feel comfortable. And then we commit to working with our other teammates and other departments to provide guidance, research, other info that may help to give background or to just provide you all with what you need to make decisions. And then to be neutral. So to kind of like not steer things either way, but to just be here to listen, provide info, and just provide that neutrality, I guess. So I'm distracted because I know that Officer Orth is waiting in the lobby, but we're going to wait and admit all of our special guest speakers until 5. So I think that's it for that one, Kim.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask a Teams question? Is there a way that I can see everybody? Because I can either see Kelly and Counselor Singh, or I can see the rest of everybody else because of the screen sharing thing. Is there a way to fix that?
Yeah, usually there might be a bar that you can move, or
Yeah,
there's
it won't let me pull that over. So that's what I was just wondering.
Okay. So there's also the view, and maybe if you're in a different setting, you might be able to switch into like large gallery, or are you already in gallery
Large gallery
view?
is not an option. Sorry, I'm sorry for derailing the conversation. I
No,
just
no,
thought
no,
it might be an easy thing.
Yeah, and then in more options, there's also gallery at top or full screen.
Let's see.
It is my least favorite thing about Teams.
Zoom is a little bit easier. So sorry, I'll continue to fiddle with this. I just didn't know
Okay.
if there was an easy way to do this.
It's actually one of why I prefer to be the one sharing my screen because I can get both.
Yeah.
But we'll make sure we take down the screen anytime that there is robust conversation, so we get that.
Great, thank you.
Brady Bunch screen. Yeah.
Hey, Valerie.
Yeah.
Valerie, on the view button, if you push the together mode, I think you get all of us. We all look like we're sitting in little chairs.
Oh, okay, we'll do it that way. That sounds reasonable. Thanks, Jimmy.
Like we're in person. Thank you, Jimmy. Yeah, and just to add to that, remain neutral. If it does feel like I'm asking probing questions or kind of pushing something, it really is just to promote the conversation, not because I feel a particular way. All right. So just background, just a refresher on how we got here. So this is the text of that PSAB recommendation that came out. I looked at I think it was spring 2022. So we're looking at a full 18 months ago. And just to read it, so create a position and empower a volunteer board to utilize a community-centered lens to assist community members in navigating the government systems of Tigard and fostering trust through meaningful conversation. And just to kind of dig into that first sentence, I think there's a lot of things that are happening here. I think that's part of why we're here together in this group is it creating a position? Is it empowering a volunteer board? Is it something different? And PSAB wasn't really able to get to that point. We kind of were running out of time and we had a lot of voices in the room. We were trying not to get too into the weeds, but that's our job here. Is to get more into the weeds and really define what this role can look like in the city. And then continuing by meeting people where they are. This role will be a connection point between community members and the city, and this role would help ensure the communities of color are afforded equity, justice, transparency, and accountability. And that really goes back to one of the focuses of PSAB was directly in response to the murder of George Floyd. And so community of color were very centered in that group. And we want to continue to center them here as well as expand to other underserved communities within Tigard. So any kind of questions of our maybe PSAB members or anything from those conversations about how we got here?
I remember the discussions well. And, you know, we actually started out with a term called ombudsman before we morphed into a community navigator position, partially because we felt that the navigator was kind of indicative of what we saw a position or a group doing for community members, navigating through the processes of multiple systems inside of the city, whether that be police or parks and rec or community development, economic development. You know, it was looked at as there are those of us in the community who feel very comfortable in spaces like this. And at the same time, there are folks who aren't comfortable for a variety of reasons, language barriers, immigration status, the fact that they may not see someone who looks like them or speaks like them. And all of those things tend to marginalize folks. And I know the city, you know, I want to believe that the city does not want to marginalize its community members and may believe in its current state that the city doesn't really marginalize its community members. And, you know, and only an awareness of that happening will make folks recognize that, oh, well, maybe, you know, maybe we do, you know, unintentionally, or we just don't know, you know, we just don't know what to do or how to do it.
Yeah, can I add something to that, Jimmy?
Of course, please do.
So, you know, a lot of these discussions obviously came out of our focus on public safety and police procedure, right? And so I think that's probably why Officer Orth is going to be addressing us later today. But, you know, the idea that there are sometimes if you're not raised in this environment, if this is not culturally the environment that you come from, if there are linguistic barriers, for example, to understanding how to file a police complaint or how to apply for a permit or for all of these things, then there's an inequity that arises because it becomes easier for someone who, you know, is raised in the dominant culture I'm fourth generation Japanese American, so I acknowledge my privilege, right? My family's been here for a long time. English is my native language. If I felt victimized by an instance, in an instance, I could go and file a complaint with the police department. There are a lot of folks though, and in the 20 years that I've lived in Tiger, this community has become much more diverse. And, so we have a lot of folks who are now living in Tigard where English is not their native language, or where they are coming from cultures that have a very different relationship with systems of government than those of us who are raised here have. And so we viewed this as an ombudsman role essentially, to help identify where there were structural communication barriers between our community and the systems of government that we have. I think the reason we went for Navigator rather than Ombudsman is because a lot of people can't pronounce the word Ombudsman. And so Navigator just seemed like an easier word for folks to identify with. But really, we conceived of it as an external facing role to help build those bridges between Tigard residents and their government.
Thank you both for that context. So that's where we came from. Let's talk about where we're going.
Yep.
So our path forward. So today, and we're really viewing this as kind of a pyramid, we're working our way up. So we're starting today, building a base of knowledge. We're all coming in from different viewpoints, trying to make sure that everyone kind of has the same background knowledge before we start having these conversations. In our next meeting, we really want to talk about, and I think Valerie and Jimmy just gave a great introduction to identifying gaps that may exist in city services and really coming to some sort of agreement amongst this group of these are the gaps that we think are the most important to try to eliminate and start to work towards. In meeting 3, perhaps meeting 4, creating that universe of solutions. So acknowledging that there were 2 different solutions that were proposed in that original PSAB recommendation, that the universe of potential is very large. And so what does exist and what could possibly fill those gaps before forming a consensus on what a preferred solution would be. So anyone who's worked with me before knows I like process. So going up the pyramid here. Any questions about this path and what you can expect over the next 4 meetings? Okay. So one thing that we do want to acknowledge, and again, this goes back to even the PSAB recommendation, is this idea of it's a Goldilocks challenge. We don't want to get so into the weeds in this group that we kind of miss things or our 4 meetings turn into 8 meetings, but we also want to move past some of the squishier words that mean different things to different people. So I swear I wrote this before we just had our conversation, so I'm not attacking anyone. It's just that these words kind of come up and they're a little too little for where we want to get to. So getting away from the words of externally focused and building bridges and navigating city systems and fostering trust.
I don't know, Kim, I'm feeling a bit attacked.
I wrote this like a week and a half ago, I promise.
It's okay, I'll forgive you this once.
But it's a really good place to start because this is what we're trying to do. And that's one of the reasons why it's too little is they're truisms, right? We all agree that we want to build bridges and foster trust. And I hope everybody in this room already agrees that these are things that we want to see in our city. We just want to move into the what. What do we need in order to do this why? So talking about the kind of solution. So is it city housed, volunteer, restructuring, change management? What are some specific areas of focus, responsibilities, and then what gaps can be addressed by this recommendation and which need to be addressed through different mechanisms or not today, knowing that we do have a limited number of resources in a city of 55,000. And then the too much. And again, so we're going to start with the why, because we are going to spend some time trying to identify what the gaps are. We're going to move into the what. We may just slightly dip our toes into the how, but this isn't where we want to spend most of our time, which is the things like, where does this report to? What is a salary, job description, classification, ideal candidate, or budget trade-offs? So really trying to think about, all right, let's focus on this middle, start on the left, get into the middle, dip our toes into the right, but really kind of trust that if we have a really good what, that the city teammates can figure out the how. Questions, comments? swear I was not attacking anybody.
That's okay. I just feel a little called out.
It just means we're on the same page. It actually makes me look a lot less neutral than I promised.
It's fine. No, I think this is a great focus for us, and I appreciate your putting this together, because I do think that, you know, we were coming out of a discussion that was very specific to the police when we first started having this discussion, and I think our vision for it expanded, and so obviously we had to take that discussion beyond just the PSAB. And so I really appreciate Counselor Singh and Kelly particularly taking the time to be involved in this discussion, because I think both of their vision is larger and their experience is larger with the city as a whole.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions around what actually is a pretty difficult challenge for the 5 of you over the next couple months? Kelly, yes.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm always going to raise my hand so that I don't accidentally have overlap with the weird sound thing. So I just want to make sure, are we going to be able to have access to your documentation that you're showing us after this meeting so that I can sort of like review it again?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Now, we'll make sure that we send this slideshow after the meeting, and then if you, not everybody processes everything in the moment. I know I certainly don't. So if you do have questions or clarifying, you can always just kind of reply all to that email, and we can work through things. Thanks. Okay. So once we solve this challenge, what happens next? So between now and December, we are going to meet and develop recommendations or a recommendation. In January, I think it's January 23rd is the budget committee presentation where that recommendation will come forward. And then also in January is when budget committee will have that opportunity to provide direction to the city manager based on the recommendation. But given that our work will be concluded mid-December is our goal, so it'll be the information will go to budget committee in their packet, so they won't be hearing it for the first, or they won't see it for the very first time that evening. All right, Steve, anything to add about the press? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jimmy.
I'm sorry. Relative to the budget itself, this process, however it ultimately turns out, would be something funded in city budget beginning July 1 through June 30 of 2025.
So Steve actually laid this out very well earlier, and that there's 3 possible kind of options that could come up. Steve, you want to take it, or I can?
I'm happy to, Kim. Thanks for that question, Jimmy. I think it's a good one. And as we were, thinking through the outcome of our conversations and the decision all of you will make, where does this go in January? And so after the report back, really we looked at, I'm thinking through 3 paths. One is there's a recommendation to not do anything different, right? To not change anything. So that doesn't have a path after that. There's the recommendation that says, whatever the recommendation is with a timing of included in the fiscal year 25 budget, as you just referenced the dates. Or it could be all of you see a sense of urgency and there could be a recommendation that says, we think it's something that should be contemplated and considered to fund in this existing budget and then carried through in the fiscal year 25. So I don't think anyone should be bound to thinking that it starts in July. You should really think about what you're working through, and then we can work through how we would help facilitate that conversation with the budget committee. Which is why here, I think for myself, back to that part, I think is this, it's gonna help me be able to help work with all of you to kind of facilitate that part of the process as well.
I also just want to add that there is the option that a recommendation can come from this group that may not have a fiscal impact, in which case the recommendation would still come forward. There would still be actions taken, but maybe there isn't the fiscal impact that would require a supplemental budget or a budget ask in 2025. So I guess there's a 4th option. So that is kind of our layout for the rest of our time together this month and next. So is there any questions about that? Anything that you'd like some information on before we hear from some Tiger teammates?
I'm probably jumping a little bit ahead relative to budgeting. But I believe the city has utilized the concept of piloting, doing pilot programs. I know they're doing PSAB. There was a pilot position for one of the sergeants that we supported for the chief to bring forward. So in our triangle of activity, does something like a piloting process fit in that? As we look forward to, is it a full year budgeting process that we're looking forward to impacting, or is it a, full systems go as is, or, we call out a pilot project to utilize the concepts that come up out of this session?
I think
So that sounds
is-
like option 5.
when I say like universe of solutions, pilot project, definitely in that universe. As
Okay.
are full-fledged solutions and others. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
I don't want to jump too far ahead. Sorry.
No, I think it's a really great clarifying question, and that's why we want to make sure everyone's got some solid foundation going into this, feet firmly planted. So. Anything else? Okay, great. So we do have 3 Tiger teammates that are waiting patiently in the lobby. We've got Tina Escalera, Judy Martin, and Officer Brian Orth. And I do want to clarify that these 3 teammates all help underserved community members navigate city government, but they are not the 3 navigators of city government. They are just 3 of our teammates that help folks navigate. And we actually had a whole bunch of interest from a bunch of other folks who,
No,
if
that's
you want to
great.
hear from other people about how they serve underserved communities in Tigard, they would be happy to come talk as well. But
What a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have these 3 who are going to talk about what their roles are and how they serve folks, and I'll let them introduce themselves and what they do. So Alex, I think we can let everyone in the room.
All right, I'll go ahead and do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're waiting. We'll let you in soon. That was 10. Okay, here we go. We're in.
Hi,
Brian.
folks.
Hi. I'm gonna.
Hello.
Can you see me now? Are we good?
We can see you. We can hear you.
Okay,
You're
great.
good.
That's a start for me because normally I have one thing wrong when I'm doing these, so we'll see. It'll probably catch up to me though.
All right. I cannot remember what order I had, folks. So we were just talking about, we've got these Tiger teammates who are wonderful navigators for our underserved teammates. I see you kind of in a column in front of me, so I'm just going to go from top to bottom. If you'd like to just give a very brief introduction of yourself and your role, and I think we'd sent you a couple of prompts. And Tina, if you wouldn't mind getting us started. And then we'll have time for questions for everybody at the end as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Tina Escalera. I'm the Economic Development Specialist for the City of Tigard. I coordinate the majority of the economic development programs, and part of my job is to market those programs to be able to increase participation in the programs. I do that by several forms of outreach. It can be by mail, whether it's email or postal mail. I do monthly phone calls, and then I do in-person visits, on-site visits to several business owners, as well as schedule tours to a lot of manufacturing businesses or larger businesses within the city. And in doing that, I have found that there is a lot of minority-owned businesses, a lot of Spanish-speaking businesses, or just business owners that prefer to speak in Spanish. So fortunately enough, I am bilingual in Spanish, and I'm able to assist those business owners. Within the last year, I can say that we do run in the Economic Development Department several programs that have increased participation with Spanish speakers in particular. Los Empresarios de Tigard is a quarterly workshop that we do run that is held completely in Spanish. Attendance has increased within the last year just because there's more of a Spanish presence from the city to be able to run those programs. It's a networking event for business owners to be able to come and learn more about tools and tips on becoming a business in Tigard, or if they're an existing business owner in the city of Tigard, how they can continue to grow within the city. And then I also run our TIF grant program, which is a matching grant fund for newer existing businesses, whether they're wanting to do facade improvements or interior improvements. And within the last year, we did have a participant that from start to finish was able to completely participate in that program completely in Spanish without them speaking English. That would be El Jefe Mexican Grill that was able to secure $50,000 towards their very first brick and mortar business. And lastly, I was able to also assist with El Tigre Fest. I was able to assist with getting the majority of the vendors recruited for that festival. So luckily now we have a pretty hefty list of vendors that are majority either vendors that do not have brick and mortar businesses, that are Tigard businesses, but they may be doing a lot of e-commerce sales, or just doing farmers market or working on the weekends, or have food carts that were able to participate in that. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Tina. Judy, do you want to talk a little bit about your role? Oh, you're muted. Oh, Judy, you're muted.
There we go. Martin, I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for the Community Development Department at the City of Tigard. And my role there is just to engage the community in all of the many variety of programs that we have through community development. And that's anything from working on roads to buildings, trails, the new Universal Plaza. So engaging community on the types of things that we're working on. I've worked for many years prior to this in equity. I was the Hispanic Services Coordinator for Clackamas County's Health Department. And so it's near and dear to my heart is engaging communities that are previously underserved, including lower income, which is something that we have a lot of in Tigard that I feel like those communities often are very underheard. So in order to do that, the ways that I do that is by taking our dog and pony shows on the road. So I like to go to lower income housing apartment complexes and utilize their community rooms to hold meetings there, which decreases the barrier of transportation. I always bring food to any function that I have. I like to make any of our activities that we do to be child friendly. It doesn't necessarily need to be a child focused activity, but I always have things for children around. I don't ever want that to be a barrier for people participating either. I believe very firmly in building relationships within the community. That is the only way that anyone is ever going to make any inroads. You have to actually have relationships with people. This is where community-based organizations can be helpful, but it does not substitute for the relationship that we have ourselves. So I like to meet people. I'm not super new at the city anymore. I've been with the City of Tigard for a little over a year now. And my focus has been to go out into the community and meet people at stores, tiendas, at community centers, and just get to know people and let them know that we're also here and we want, I like it to be a two-way communication, that I'm available if you have a question for me as well. For example, next week, actually no, it's tomorrow. Goodness gracious, time sure flies. Tomorrow, I'm going to the senior center because we've working on a trail, and we've got not a trail, on a plaza, and we've got a couple of options that we want people to look at, of which design option for this new plaza that they would be interested in. And one of the challenges with it is that a lot of times we use QR codes because that's the easiest way to send people to information. Well, older people oftentimes have a difficult time with that. So I'm going to go over to the senior center, to the community center tomorrow during the lunchtime when Meals on Wheels will be there serving up lunch. And my understanding is they have about 50 or 60 people who come, and I'm going to have big posters showing so that they can just point to which one they like. But the types of engagement strategies that I like to use.
Thank you very much, Judy. And Officer Orth, want to talk about your role?
Sure. I'm Officer Brian Orth, and I'm a patrol officer. So I deal with all segments of the community, but specifically I deal with the downtown businesses, the homeless community, and then the library and the trails with the city. So I'm a focused patrol officer, so I deal with those specific parts of the city. So those are the people I deal with. And then my role is communicating with the businesses downtown. I communicate with the shelters. I communicate with all the department heads about camp cleanups or garbage found on the road, stuff like that. I communicate with the transients themselves. And then the way I bridge the gap between the underserved is I get them in touch with the resources they need. So for example, like the homeless community, I get them in touch with the shelters, outreach workers, food pantries, the businesses that are downtown. I check in and stop with them. Chat with them. There's new ones in the downtown area. So I just check in with them and say, hey, I'm Officer Orth. I'm a focus patrol officer. I'm dedicated to the downtown area. Here's my card with my schedule, all the information, all the ways to get a hold of me, any questions or anything like that. I'm their first point of contact. So they don't have to go through a phone tree or anything like that. I like to be that one-stop shop where I can guide them in the direction that they need to go. So some examples, like say, for example, this morning, there was a homeless person in front of one of the churches and they wanted her gone. So I went, chatted with her, got her belongings all packed up, brought her up to the shelter, checked in with the shelter saying, hey, I'm bringing this lady. She needs some help, some resources, and then dropped her off there. And then, like I said, with the businesses, there's the new businesses that show up in the downtown area. I go and introduce myself, and I've already done this with all the businesses down there, but just most recently, any new businesses, I'll do that. But when I first took the position on, I went and communicated with all the businesses, exactly what my role is and how I operate. And I send out weekly emails to the businesses, telling them everything that's going on in the downtown area. And if they have any questions or specific concerns, they can contact me directly. And so I kind of keep everybody in the loop. And then with the department heads, I talk to them about, like I said, the camps that are out there, and then anything that's on the street, shopping carts, just garbage left behind, anything like that. So I'll call up the department heads and they'll send someone over here or to this part on the trail to clean this up. So we all kind of work in unison together and just kind of keep the community clean. So those are kind of specifically the stuff I do on top of other duties that I have with my job.
Thank you. Thank you, Officer Worth. And thank you, Tina and Judy. And so I just want to open it up to questions from this group. So I know Tina, Brian, Judy, I think we sent you a little bit of information about the Community Navigator, kind of what this committee is, but really trying to understand, our purpose today is to try to kind of make sure everyone has the same base of knowledge of kind of what services are available and how are people and how are city teammates already serving our community, so that we can identify any gaps that need to be looked at. So just open it up for questions from our committee. Kelly, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, hi everybody. I'm curious if each of you could maybe tell me what gaps do you perceive in the services that are out there, like the service that you perform. And I guess I'd also like a little bit more detail from, bear with me for 2 seconds. And my voice is going, so I don't always sound this terrible. Some more details from Tina on just kind of like how you've seen participation increased from local businesses and underserved businesses or minority-owned businesses. And then maybe a little bit more information from Judy on sort of like what your measure of being successful at outreach might be. And I apologize if I'm saying that badly, but if you need clarification, let me know and I'll try to rephrase it a little bit better.
Tina, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, as far as the gap, consistent feedback that I have heard when I'm out in the community is that they have had contact with the city in the past before, but there hasn't really been like follow-up. So whether it's like someone will come out and tell them about this event and then they'll never hear from them again, or someone will come out and tell them about this great opportunity and then they'll never hear from them again. So that's something that I have voiced with the city, and that's something that we have been working on. And that's something that I definitely take pride in. So anytime I go in and I do a business visit, I follow up with them via email. Hey, it was nice meeting you today. You know, here's my contact information and here's the programs that we talked about. Contact me if you need anything. And sometimes I'll get a response and sometimes I won't. And sometimes I'll get a response like 6 months later, like, hey, you know, like I met you 6 months ago. This has nothing to do with my business, but do you know who can help me with paying my water bill or something? So it's kind of interesting that people, you know, do look forward to those emails. As far as the second question on the increased participation, I think it's just building that relationship with them. Like I have like a deck of people that I know I can call. And if I'm like, hey, I'm going to have an event, like I would love, you're really going to like gain something out of this. Like I know they will come because I have built that relationship with them. Like when I visit a business owner, not only do I consistently email them, even when I go out, like I try to go out once a week and visit 3 to 5 businesses a week. And if I'm like in the area, like I'm still going to go visit like Cardboard Diamonds if I'm visiting Alvaro's Tacos. Like I'm gonna be like, hey, I was just in the area and how are you doing? Like I still go in there and I just say a quick hello. Like they already know me. Like, oh, hey Tina, how's it going? And quick follow-up. Like if I'm in a certain area and I see someone that I know, like I'll go in and just say hi. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to, you know, get started on that program. And I think just building that relationship where it's not like awkward when I like email them. It's not like, oh, hey, it's that one person from the city. It's like they know it's Tina and they know that I'm like going to stop by anytime or call them or email them. So I think that's really kind of almost like we've built like a good, strong relationship where people like are like, okay, I need to go because this is Tina's event or something like that.
Thanks, Tina. And Judy. Oh, you're muted again.
Thank you. Yeah, and thinking about that question, that's a question that I think the question that you asked, Kelly, I think was kind of a metrics question. How do you know when you're doing the work in validity? How do you know that you've arrived? And the answer to that, I think, is never. There's never a time when you have. It's always going to be. It's pretty nebulous. There's the concrete things you can measure, like how many people who spoke a different language were at our event, how many people over the age of XYZ. You can get certain metrics like that, but it's not going to. That'll be a snapshot in time. What we need is over the course of time is to be building relationships within our community that are there and that are tangible, and that we know who to call when we want to engage a community, and they know who to call at the city when they want to talk to someone in the city. So so I guess that's not the greatest answer, but for me, I feel like we're successful. We're never, in my mind, we're never going to be successful. That's not a target that anyone can ever hit, because, and with any kind of humans, we're always going to need to work on our communication skills, how we're getting information about government and things that can by and large not be very interesting to people. And a lot of times people don't understand that things that impact them right now have been being planned for 10 or 20 years, and that's a really powerless feeling when all of a sudden they're building something next to you and you didn't know it was coming. And so our questions are broader than what happened at our last event and who showed up. It's who was engaged in the conversation at the very, very beginning, and some of that is new. Some of that's new conversations, but some of that is older conversations. But for us, for a city, for Tigard, I just feel like we need to work more on getting those types of systems and structures into place, like our relationships with our community. What does that look like? And how is it there? For example, Tina's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. What happens when Tina leaves, right? Tina has the relationship with people. So for me, it's more looking at the larger structure of not the person, but the position or the structure or the container that we have our type of engagement in. Like, how do we keep that out into the community in all areas? And what's our strategy, our overriding strategy? And right now you all are talking to me and Tina and Officer Orth, but there's the library, Public Works, they all have their own ways of engaging with the public. It's a much larger than we are. So I'm not doing a great job of answering you, but for me, I feel really good about just the fact that we're doing a lot more of even just getting our materials not only translated, but making the events that we're inviting people to be welcoming for communities. And that's great success to me in my role.
Thanks, Judy. And Officer Orth.
This is just a follow-up question on what gaps there are that I see.
Yeah. What gaps do you see? Yep.
Well, the gaps, hold on. The gaps I'm seeing are just with the low staffing levels that we have and having people getting responses and talk to and stuff. And so, like, for example, with the motorhomes, like, we don't have a community service officer right now, so we can't deal with the motorhomes. And so it's kind of just randomly falling on officers to deal with and kind of do a case by case basis, where if we had a community service officer, which they're in the backgrounds right now, it's just a little delayed, they'd be able to focus purely on those, hold on a minute. Sorry about that, I had some background noise. Where they'd be able to focus on that and give the public their service of, dealing with motorhomes. So that's where I see the gap right now. We get the emails that are sent in, and those go to me, or they go to somebody else who then forwards them to me in terms of like camps that have just shown up or any complaints with that type of stuff, with garbage or anything like that. So that all gets emailed to me. So that has been kind of something I've been working on to get that streamlined to go to me. And so I respond to those people, so there's no like communication breakdown or anything like that. So I think that kind of answers the question the best that I can with my position, at least.
Thank you. Kelly, does that answer your questions? Great questions.
7 seconds. I think so. I think it does. I mean, I was looking to get all of your perspectives, and I think you all shared that. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. I know this is kind of it's a late night for me, so I apologize if I'm not asking the right questions or doing anything that makes sense, but thank you for giving me your opinions on everything.
Thanks, Kelly. Jimmy, did you have any questions?
Questions, statements. I am not in a drug haze. I want you to know that. I did not take the oxy for the knee today, so I'm okay. That being said, you know, as I kind of sit here and I've listened to this, and I totally appreciate everything the three of you have said. I am drawn to one of my favorite shows, The Lord of the Rings, and that each of you represent a ring of power inside of the structure of the city. And then I heard that, well, Parks and Rec has a ring, and economic development has a ring, and public works has a ring. And so there are all these rings that are out there doing similar kinds of things, and obviously good things. So I would ask you, is there in the model of the rings the need for one ring that rules them all, so to speak? In the sense of, well, who establishes what is good process? Who establishes what are some of the key elements to have in doing this kind of work that you are all doing and putting your own cachet into it? Because it's very clear that this is all near and dear to each of you. So is there this, I guess, getting it out of the Lord of the Rings modality, are we talking about, in your minds, the possibility of some type of restructuring or structural system that connects all the rings as they do the work that they do? And again, that didn't come from Oxy. That was just listening to all of you, because I really do believe that you're talking about individualized power and what individually each of you have been able to do utilizing your power and the connection to the community, etc.
Yeah, I think Judy's got a response.
I can remember to unmute myself and then take my hand down. Great question. And so our city is pretty small, and when we were talking earlier, I was thinking about how if somebody knows anybody, actually anybody in the city, the people are great. And when you call someone, even if they don't have the answer, they typically have a pretty good idea of who might have the answer or who might know who will have the answer. And they will make sure that somebody gets an answer, gets to the right person. But if you don't know who to call in the city, that might be a different story. I mean, if you don't know anybody, you have no idea, you've never been there before, you come to our front doors and it's even kind of unclear which one to go into. You know, do I go into the right or do I go into the left? So that's just an aside. But what you're talking about, Jimmy, right? I think that it's a little bit communications and a lot of it communications and a lot of it diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And those two things go really hand in hand. So our DEIB, it's not a new effort once again, but we do have a newer person at the helm. And I do believe that's one of the conversations we've been having. I have the privilege of sitting on the DEIB team, and I'm also in communications. But trying to get those two to merge together a little bit better so that we're again coming up with the structure and the systems. But it's really challenging when you've got both of those are very tiny departments. You know, DEIB is a department of one, you know, and communications is a small department as well that does a lot of things for the city. So yes, what you're saying, yes to what you're saying is what I'm trying to say. That it does feel like that we do need somewhere where somebody can help us structure so that we're all sort of getting information and ideas and encouragement and support and collaboration within the city in a structured way.
Valerie, please.
Okay, I think that was less than 7 seconds. So I am so happy to hear about the amazing things that the three of you are doing. I mean, we've been hearing about what Officer Orth has been doing for quite a while on the PSAB and the Chiefs Advisory Panel. So thank you. Please keep up the good work. But to hear what Judy and Tina, what you're doing in our minority communities is really impressive. And I really appreciate your doing that. And I think it goes to show, you know, that when you empower people to have these conversations with people and to reach out to people, you really have shown a lot of initiative in the things that you're doing. What I do wonder is, do you feel that you have good mentoring in how to reach out to communities that may be less comfortable for you? Because, Tina, you talked a lot about reaching out to the Hispanic communities, and a lot of the organizations that you talked about are Hispanic. You know, and you mentioned that you're bilingual, so I could imagine those conversations are easier. Well, certainly easier for you than they would be for me with my terrible Duolingo Spanish. But, you know, I wonder, because I know that we have a very strong Korean community and we have a strong Vietnamese community in Tigard. You know, there are Russian people and, you know, people who speak Arabic who are in our community. And, you know, they're a smaller population, right, than our Hispanics or Spanish speaking community. But how do we make inroads into those? I mean, is there a way, is there mentoring that you get, or are there connections that, you know, we can build that will help make it easier for folks who are, you know, of these different communities to interact with city government? Because I think what Judy said is absolutely correct. Once you know someone, you have an in, right? But you have to know someone. And so how do you make that connection point between, you know, the not knowing anybody and wanting to do the thing, or wanting to file a police report, or wanting to do, you know, open a business? How do we do that in Tigard? Question mark. That was my question.
So I think maybe the root of that question is, Judy and Tina, have you seen mentoring and skill building around reaching out to communities that you may be less comfortable with, or have come into this role not having a prior connection with?
Dana, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Sure, I can go.
Okay.
On the economic development side, we do have several business support partners. So Apano comes to mind. That's someone that I do meet with frequently to be able to get into the Asian Pacific Islander business owner / entrepreneur network. It's somewhere where I'm able to refer people to, as well as if they have referrals to. And again, I think that just goes based on relationships that we have. So I want to say it's 16 different business support partners that the city has a relationship with, where we're frequently having monthly meetings and talking about, you know, if they have any referrals or if I have any referrals, we pass them on to. I would say that is the type of coaching that I currently have to be able to build into those minority-based business owners or entrepreneurs.
Thanks, Tina. And Judy?
I would just concur with what Tina says. I think that what we fall to a lot, and which that's fairly common in not only in government but in nonprofit agencies, is leaning on your community-based organizations. Tigard is interesting because it's pretty small, and there's not like a plethora. It's not like, you know, in Portland, there in like many neighborhoods, you can find a lot of diversity in the community-based organizations. That's not so true here. We do have to work harder, and yes, we need to do better at that. What I've seen when I first came a year ago, we sometimes will contract that out to somebody who has relationship in the community, and they will gather like an Arabic focus group, or you know, they host some events that are in specific languages or specific cultures. And I feel like I don't want to give away my relationship with, but I think we really do need to make sure that we also have the relationship with the community and the community-based organizations. So my hope in the work, I feel like my work is not confined to my department because I am in the diversity and equity team and the communications team. I actually feel a bit of responsibility to share my story too of what I'm experiencing in the work that I do and how do we work together with our diversity and equity team and our comms team. I think we have the talent and the know-how and the ability within our crew, but we need to make the time for it. And that's a challenge. Again, we are small, and so we're all wearing many hats. But those are the types of things that we're working on addressing. So it's a full conversation. I love that we're having it here too.
Thanks, Judy. Valerie, does that answer your question? Yep. Councillor Singh, please.
Thank you all. Yeah, this is a really great conversation, and thank you all for doing the work that you're doing and being here and sharing that experience and knowledge with us. I know we're thinking about making this, an external facing position possibly, but just wanted to ask if you all think it would be helpful to work. I mean, do you think it would help to work across, different departments within the city of Tigard when it comes to outreach and navigation? As navigators already, do you all talk to each other? Do you feel siloed or feel somewhat alone in doing outreach? Are you like aware of what other positions are doing in terms of navigation? And if so, would that be helpful to break those silos within the city? My thought is how can we have sort of more of an institutionalized or have an even more structured community engagement practices throughout all departments in Tigard? I feel like there's some staff that are really providing Spanish speaking access needs. Others are making sure we're making things easier for seniors, and others responding to houseless folks. I really see this position, from what I'm hearing, it has the ability to work across, departments and really set up sustainable like metrics and standards for the cities, and it allows, community members to hold Tigard accountable, when it comes to doing like events and helping navigate our systems. So yeah, I just would love to hear your thoughts in terms of how you all feel working internally.
Yeah. Officer Orth, we haven't started with you yet. You want to talk a little bit about how you feel cross communication across departments goes?
Well, for me specifically, I have very open lines of communication with all the departments I deal with. I don't deal with Tina or Judy at all. I don't know if we interchange, if our kind of positions interchange where we would need to talk to each other. But I have, like I mentioned, I talk to all of the heads of all the departments, and that's all within the kind of the workings of Tigard. So a citizen comes and complains to me about whatever, I can then take that information and direct it toward, say, streets department to go clean up whatever, or the parks department to go deal with this. So I communicate really well with all of that. So I don't know, maybe there's a gap with Judy or Tina that we're missing. I'm not sure. I'm sure we could benefit each other at some point. But so far, I'm not sure if I would do anything really differently. I'm kind of doing it the best that I think that I can do for the city and executing on that. So I'm always open for anything that can improve, communication or anything that'll help my job, or that's kind of how I view it. So I think the police is kind of off onto a separate little entity itself when it comes to that type of stuff. But I'm probably missing something here.
Can
Valerie,
I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Please do.
Because I think, Councillor Singh, what I heard from your question was, is there a way for folks in different departments to share best practices? And if not, what would people like out of that process? Is that an accurate way to restate that?
Yeah, I think, it's about best practices and also just setting standards too, across all departments. And I think that's sort of like having, if we provide, Spanish interpretation at some events or childcare at other events, I don't know if it's consistent throughout different departments. And so, yeah, I think those best practices as well as just metrics and standard practices across different departments, keeping it consistent. So yeah, thank you, Valerie.
And I think Officer Orth might have a little bit of a different take in that our houselessness series of meetings and collaboration, I think, looks a little different. But Judy, you unmuted if you wanted to go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's kind of that's such a broad question. I think, and just my work with equity, it's that in my experience is that it's a lot more nuanced than that. So like to have, it's challenging to have like, oh, at every public event we have, we're going to have this interpreter or this. It would depend on the project. Again, what the library might be doing for a senior movie night, or we might have a like even the open house for Universal Plaza. There's different things, where you want everybody, where you want some people, there's such a diverse amount of work that we do here in Tigard that there isn't really a one size fits all. But what there is, and to your point, is that there is best practice. And I think that that's something that we surely can speak to. And we already, I think, have a lot of great forums for that, like in our comms team meeting, which is once a week with all the folks who do most of the community engagement. And then also with the diversity team, that they could help with putting up some parameters, some sort of, guide for equitable engagement in our community. I think you said something like if there was a person, I don't know that one person, because of all of the different things that there are, I don't know how that would look. I'm always for adding to the pool. Don't get me wrong. Always for adding to the pool. But I'm just wondering how that would look, and then what we already have in place that could be utilized more effectively.
I think that's a really great point, Judy, and goes back to this universe of solutions where is it a position? Is it a restructuring? Is it something else? So is it, yeah. Jimmy, I saw you. I do want to just do a time check. We have 10 minutes left, so we are going to leave this conversation after Jimmy's comments.
So I'll try to be really quick here. I really appreciate all of this conversation. It's good to be back in the environment where we can have that. We had a lot of that with PSAB, and we certainly had it with the Chiefs Advisory Council. So this is just another part of that whole process. What I'm hearing is really what is the formula that generates the best activity inside of the structure of the city. And that formula, it may, as everyone has said, it may be focused on best practices. There may be, communication skill development. There may be focus on equity and diversity and inclusion, but it's really a formula that you're looking at. So I'm not saying necessarily, when I use the analogy of the one ring that binds them all, it's not necessarily an entity as much as it is, what does the formula look like that allows it all to be bound together? Because right now, as wonderful the work that you're all doing, and it's very clear that you're doing this, there are strands that are moving that aren't necessarily tied to a particular formula, or the formula may be in your own head or your own lived experience, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. It's just a different way that you all are doing business. So just a thought.
Thanks, Jimmy. All right, well, thank you very much, teammates, for coming and speaking with the group this evening. Go enjoy the rest of your night. Really appreciate it. Oh, Steve,
Thanks,
you want
Tina.
to?
Thanks, Judy. Thanks, Officer Orth.
Thank you.
See ya.
All right, so in our last 8 minutes, we've got a couple of slides from Alex. Alex, is this enough time for you, or would you prefer that we just send the slides, or you want to focus on one of them rather than both?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I think if you wouldn't mind actually pushing it to the next meeting, or we can send the slides, and if people would like me to speak on it, I can do that at the next meeting. Because I don't want us to be too short on time on wrap up, because I feel like that was really good discussion.
Yeah, so we do have a couple slides on a few other city initiatives. The slides actually have quite a bit of information on them, so we'll go ahead and send those out. And then if there's follow-up questions, hit reply all in that email, and we'll answer anything that comes up. All right. So next steps. First, thank you for your engagement this evening and fantastic questions. And Steve, please.
Thanks, Kim. If I'm getting ahead of myself with the wrap up, I just want to come back to what you shared with the group. When we approached the 3 teammates that you just met, others, as they learned about this in our communication engagement team, I think Alex is where it was shared. Many others would like to share experiences or are willing to. So if this group feels that at any time, it would be valuable to hear from another few teammates just to understand what they're doing as well. Please don't hesitate to ask. I know there is very much a willingness for people to join us as well. So,
Steve. Yeah, so going into our next meeting, so it's going to be November 28th. So that is the Tuesday evening after Thanksgiving, same time, same place. Although we may change technology. We're going to talk about that and some pluses and minuses to what we're dealing with here. But something just to kind of bring us back. I know we started to dip our toes into the solutions and with that universe of solutions, but we really are going to come back to a focus on what is that gap. So I think we heard a really great description of a gap from teammates this evening. And I think there's other gaps I know came up in PSAB and that you may have lived experience with or experiences that you've heard from the community. So just we're going to refocus that conversation on what are the universe of gaps that we see in the city service. And then following this meeting and before our next is we will send out those slides. If you have any questions, if you have anything that you sleep on it for a night and you're like, oh, I really should have asked that, let us know and we will answer. And other than that, we will see you in 2 weeks. Any last questions?
so thanks everyone. This was great.
This was good stuff. Good work,
Yeah.
Kim and Alex and everybody.
Yes, thank
Good
you
to-
so
good to
much.
see
And
you.
Kelly, I hope you feel better.
Agree.
Thank
Jimmy,
you.
Jimmy.
And Jimmy, yeah.
I had a blanket. Yeah.
Hope everyone is healthy and whole. And
Yeah. Have a nice holiday.
Need some hot
See you, Valerie.
chocolate.
See you, Kelly. See you, Jimmy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks
See ya.
all. Bye. Have a good night.
Bye.